We're good to go? Here we are, we're on Facebook Live. I'm Mehdi Hassan, host of Deconstructed, columnist for The Intercept. I'm here in the office of Senator Bernie Sanders on Capitol Hill. Senator Sanders is hosting a town hall meeting tonight. He's now a star of social media. He's not just a politician, he does TV too now. He's doing Breaking the Deal, the aftermath of Trump's decision on the Iran nuclear agreement. It's live at 7 p.m. on Senator Sanders' Facebook page, on The Intercept's Facebook page. Do tune in. He's got a panel of really top-notch experts to talk. Well, let me ask you this as an opening question. Why are you doing this panel tonight when Trump has basically made his decision? He's pulled out, he's violated
I'll tell you
the deal.
why. I think in general, we have a one-party foreign policy in this country. I think there are enormous issues which get virtually no discussion at all. We talk about the war on drugs being a failure. Well, what about the war on terrorism? Should we start rethinking that? And what it should be the proper relationship of the United States to the rest of the world. And those are some of the issues we'll begin to talk about tonight.
And on the nuclear deal specifically, do you believe now, with Trump's decision to violate that deal, with the heightened tensions in the region that we've seen just since last week alone, do you believe that the United States is now on a path to war with Iran?
I fear that very much. I hope to God that is not the case. But I think what the American people perceive is that after 17 years of war in Afghanistan, 17 years, 15 years of war in Iraq, apparently that is not enough for some people. And I fear very much that there is now a lot of support for Saudi Arabia's aims in the region. And I fear that we are going to get sucked into a Sunni Shia, Saudi Arabia, Iran war, which could be never-ending. I think we're looking at an Orwellian nightmare of never-ending war, and we've got to do everything we can to prevent that.
Well, in terms of preventing it, the European governments, America's European allies, Germany, France, Britain, said they are going to stay in the deal.
Right.
What is your advice? Do you have any advice to those governments about what they should do next? Should they be standing up to Trump to try and save the deal?
I think so.
What do you do to save it?
I mean, you got to save the deal, but more importantly, what the United States, it's not just Europe, it's the United States Congress has got to reassert its authority over foreign policy. In terms of war making, the Constitution is very clear. It's the United States Congress, not the president, who makes these decisions. I do not want to see a never-ending war in the Middle East with Americans continuing to lose lives, causing mass destabilization. That's what we saw in Iraq. It could continue. We've got to do everything we can to prevent it.
Should Democrats be going into the 2018 midterms making Iran an issue and saying, look, we're not going to go to war with Iran. We're going to stop Donald Trump from taking us into another illegal war?
I think the American people do not want us to continue to spend enormous sums of money, put American lives at risk, destabilize the region. We need a change of policy.
So I just want to take some questions that we've had from some of our readers on Facebook for the Senator. A very common question that a lot of readers have raised, I'm going to mention Menaz Amini and Brandon Hunter have both asked a question, which is, why is it, a lot of people look at the Middle East and look at the kind of the nuclear debate, why is it that Israel is allowed to have nuclear weapons and Iran's not allowed to have a nuclear program, let alone nuclear weapons? Why the double standard?
Well, I don't want to see Iran have nuclear weapons, and I want to see this world move aggressively to end the nuclear weapons arms race. One of the great miracles of our lifetimes has been that there's not been another nuclear war since Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And we've got to do everything possible to rid this world, including Israel, of its nuclear weapons.
Yeah, because Brandon Hunter makes the point that Iran, one of the reasons Iran claims to want have more.
Yeah, I know. Then Saudi Arabia is going to want nuclear weapons as well, and I don't know
that. Tackle all the countries as well.
Yes.
And then another question here from Kevin Smith, an interesting question here, saying, what does Senator Sanders believe the America's fundamental disagreement with Iran is? Put aside all the stuff he says about authoritarianism, terrorism, all the claims. When it comes down to it, he says, what is our actual beef with Iran?
Well, this goes back to the early 1950s when the United States, along with the United Kingdom, overthrew the democratically elected government, Mossadegh, prime minister.
And I don't know that history here.
I know they don't. I want to talk about that tonight as well. It's important that we know modern history in U.S.-Iranian relations. The other point to be made is that the United States has been allied with Saudi Arabia for a very long time. And one of the things, Mehdi, that disturbs me very much is we talk about, Saudi Arabia is this wonderful ally. This is a despotic regime run by a small number of multi-billionaires The present prince there has purchased the most expensive house in the world, the most expensive yacht in the world. And these are not necessarily the nicest guys in the world. And I think what the United States should be doing is trying to play a level-handed role, working with Saudi Arabia, working with Iran, working with Israel, working with Russia, trying to undertake the very difficult task of bringing some peace and security to that region, and being simply allied and maybe a tool for Saudi Arabia in that whole process is not a good idea in my view.
It's interesting that you mentioned the wider region and security. We're meeting on a day when there has been some horrific violence in the occupied Palestinian territories. You have more than 50 Palestinians dead. You're one of the few, I think only, senators who's put out a statement today condemning that violence. You said in your statement about the killing of Palestinians, you said there's no justification for the shooting and killing of unarmed Palestinian protesters. No justification is what you say in your statement. So let me ask you this. Do you believe, as many human rights groups, American, Israeli, Palestinian, European, are saying that the IDF, snipers, shooting kids, people in wheelchairs, are those war crimes?
Well, they're terrible actions, period. And I think, what the United States should be doing, and of course the Trump administration is doing exactly the opposite, is instead of applauding Israel for its actions, Israel should be condemned. Israel has a right to security, but shooting unarmed protesters is not what it is about. And ultimately, of course, when you have a situation in Hamas where youth unemployment is somewhere around 60%, in Gaza, I'm sorry, where youth unemployment is 60%, where people are drinking filthy water, where the economy is a total disaster, we're not going to get a handle on that problem until the world, led by the United States, begins addressing that issue.
And you mentioned the president's role in applauding this. I mean, today's violence seems to be almost in direct response to the embassy move. Some would say an illegal embassy move. How much do you think Donald Trump is responsible for today's violence?
Well, it doesn't matter what it is. But I mean, obviously, Trump is playing a very counterproductive role in every sense. The bottom line is, this is a terrible, terrible tragedy. Innocent people are being killed, and it will only continue until we get a handle on the very serious humanitarian crisis now existing in Gaza.
And one last question from Rita, which
I think
I'm going to give you this not on Iran or on Gaza, but related to Fahim Shirazi writes to say, considering how much of our taxes go towards defence, how much money is spent on defence, it's essentially socialised. Should the defence industry be nationalised? He wants you to answer that.
Well, I think the point here is that we spend now well over $700 billion a year. Military spending was increased by $165 billion over a 2-year period. And I think one of the concerns that I have, if you give this much money to a Donald Trump, they're going to spend that money. That's what they're going to do. And they're going to spend that money to justify the arms allocations that they receive. And that leads us to never-ending war. So this is a huge issue. It is not talked about enough. And I look forward to the discussion tonight.
The discussion tonight is at 7 p.m. It's live on Facebook. It's on Senator Sanders' page. It's on the Intercept's page. Do tune in. A very important discussion. He mentioned Mossadegh. You don't get to hear about Mossadegh in US politics. So tune in, watch the debate, support all of the efforts being done to discuss the craziness in the Middle East. Senator Sanders, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.